Hello everyone, it's Matt from Akuma Mods, back again with our review of the Elegoo Saturn. So, I've been trying to get my hands on an Elegoo Saturn for quite a long time. Oddly enough, it seems like Amazon never had them. I don't have any contacts with Elegoo to get a review unit or anything like that. I've always bought Elegoo products just because it seems to be the hype and standard for everybody getting into resin printing on the cheap. Now, with that being said, it seems to go hand in hand that me and cheap and 3D printing just don't mix. The case was with FDM printing and the Ender 3. The same goes with Elegoo products and resin printing. I've had this unit for about 3.5, maybe 4 months now, maybe almost 5 actually. I actually was able to score this off Amazon when they were almost impossible to find. Now it seems like they're readily available, and I'll get to that in a little bit here. But I ended up buying 7 of them, and the reason I did that is because, well, at the time that I bought them, scalping prices were going through the roof, like $2,000 through the roof. So I had to put a stop to it. Now, some of you that are watching this may or may not like that I did that because, well, that takes it out of the hands of people who can get it. But let me just put up some information about why I did this, okay? First off, there was scalping. Second off, the only time that I seen these go on sale is when it was pretty much sleep time for everybody. Well, me, I'm up late at night all the time. So I happen to end up scoring these at about 4 in the morning. 4 in the morning. Not too many people are up at that point. So basically they dropped 1, then they dropped 2, then they dropped 3, and I just basically kept on buying them as much as I could possibly buy with the amount of cash I had. I think I spent about $3,500 worth of printers. Anyway, so I ended up buying them, and yeah, a lot of people were mad about it. So be it. I understand where they're coming from, but you got to understand where I'm coming from. I'm trying to take them out of the hands of scalpers. So I sold them for cost plus shipping, because shipping was very expensive for these things. So I got them for about $560, taxes and everything out the door, because I live in lovely Illinois state, and our taxes are insanely high. So yeah, while this was a $499 printer, when it was all said and done with it fees, they were $560 a piece, and some change. So I ended up selling them for like $620 because shipping was about $50, and I think I made $5 on the deal. So technically, yes, I scalped for $5 a unit when it was all said and done. So yeah. Anyway, I had this one that I kept, and it was pretty good for about the first month or so. I've been printing with it nonstop, and it seemed to be okay. Then, after pretty much the 30 days, it was actually 4 days after the 30-day return window on Amazon, then we started having issues. From the touchscreen stopped working, so I had to go in and had to fix that. It was an issue where the screen was butting up against the metal and it was grounding out. So thankfully that was an easy fix. Then about a week after that, the LED started flickering, at least one side of it. So we had to go in there. Obviously it was a simple fix as well. It was some wiring issues that came dislodged, some soldering. So thankfully I have my soldering iron. What you guys can't see it, it's blocked, but I have my soldering iron. I have some soldering skills, so I resoldered that, got that working. Then shortly after that, I started seeing some issues on the Facebook groups with the power module that basically runs the LED drivers. And yeah, shortly after I seen that, I want to say it was about almost a week and a half after I saw posts about that, my driver board went bad. So I ended up having to replace it. I replaced it with a better one that's, just as good. Looks exactly the same, but it's a little bit better quality components on it. So I ended up replacing that, and then the LCD screen went out, started flickering. Don't know if that was my fault. I'll just chalk it up as my fault. I didn't have any failures that I saw, but it's an LCD screen, so usually with me printing and it just goes bad, I'm going to chalk it up with my fault. So we had to end up replacing that. Then, out of nowhere, the build plate would not remain leveled. And this is an issue that I have with these printers since the get-go, since I had my original Elegoo Mars. They have a 2-screw system that is a ball joint system as well. So when you loosen these screws, the ball joint pops down and it's spring-loaded. So it pops down, and then the entire build plate can move 360 degrees. While that sounds like a great idea in theory, when you're using it and you're tipping it on its side and you're scraping off the resin prints, as I do, it tends to break loose no matter what you have here, because there's only 2 screws holding it. Now, this main screw is upgraded, but it came loose and it started stripping after a while. So I guess, I don't know, maybe I just have man hands and or bare hands, whatever, and I, tend to, scrape my prints off of it too hard. I don't know. So we ended up having to replace the entire build plate. Thankfully, those are available on Amazon, or were at the time. I don't know if that's the case. So going back to the whole issue with them not being on Amazon and scalping and everything like that. The other workaround that I was going to do for a lot of people was to buy them in bulk. And what's funny about that is when I contacted them about buying bulk, they were readily available, yet they weren't on Amazon. Now, this is the second time that I had contacted them in the time frame where they basically launched them on Amazon, and they were pretty much impossible to find, to where they were kind of able to be found, but you just had to be there at the right time. So they were a little bit more available, but still scarce. Scarce enough to have scalpers. And both times that I contacted them, they were readily available and would be here within a month. So it just seems kind of strange that, this unit was almost impossible to find. Then 2 units came out on the market. The Voxel Lab Proxima 8.9, which is literally built off of the same printer. Now, if anybody knows anything about resin printing and printing in general, there's a lot of manufacturers that contract out to other manufacturers to make their products and basically slap their brand name on it. This is the same thing with Elegoo products. I've said this from the get-go. A lot of people may fight me about this, but it's absolutely true. You can just basically look at the designs, and if you know anything about resin printing and have been in resin printing for a while, you know that Calent basically makes most of the parts for this printer. Not saying they make the final product. Elegoo does put their final touches on it. They change out the build plate and everything. But this is basically based off of the Calent S400. Well, let me rephrase that. This is technically the S500. The original unit that was sent out to reviewers was the S400 version, which had a 2K monochrome screen. This has a 4K monochrome screen, hence why the S500 Calent also has a 4K monochrome screen. So they're basically based off of the same type of printer. They're just some slight tweaks here and there. Everybody does it. It's the same thing. Like I said, the Voxel Lab Proxima 8.9 is literally the exact same printer. It just has a little bit better build plate on it. I think the VAT has changed a little bit as well, but other than that, the entire unit is exactly the same. And these are kind of loosely based off of the Calent S400 500, as well as the X Cube, which is also made by Calent. The X Cube is also known as the Sane Smart Kumitsu, which is very, very expensive. It's definitely a higher grade version of this, and definitely a lot heavier because the materials that they use on it are more solid. This one is made to be a budget printer, so that's basically where it is. So this is just another variant of the Calent. Same thing goes for the Elegoo Mars. The Elegoo Mars is based off the Calent Orbeat or D100 or even a D200 that's out there. Those were not really readily available, nowadays. But if you find one, you can basically see that it's based off of the same type of printer as the original Mars. So anyway, so I don't really have prints to show you guys because, well, it's just been having constant issues, and the prints that I do have, well, they're here and they're gone. So I don't really have anything that I even know of on my desk here or anywhere that I can show you guys off. So, unfortunately, with this review, you're just gonna kind of have to take it as is. I know I'm doing a lot of put down, but when the printer was printing, it did print very, very well, just as you expect any Elegoo printer to print. Again, this is a kind of on the lower grade side, so don't expect an amazing finish like you do from Frozen Sonic Mini, which in my opinion is just slightly better, but it does produce a very, very good print. So if you are looking for a cheap printer, there's this printer here. But if it's not readily available, there's the identical printer to it. Like I said, the Voxelab Proxima 8.9. It's literally the same exact printer, just like I said, with a little bit better build plates on it because it has the 4-point leveling system. So other than that, it's got a very, very nice system into it. I like the whole red and black type thing. Maybe that's just me, but I've kind of gotten into that. This does block a lot of the UV ray from coming in. I'm not a big fan of their build plates at all. That's just maybe my thing. I don't know. I know a lot of people love it, but hey, that is what it is. But yeah, I haven't really had any issues after I've fixed all the main issues that pretty much everybody else had. And one of the things that I see, and even with the new release of the Mars 3, their quality control seems to be headed way downhill, and seems to be since the release of the Elegoo Saturn, which is unfortunate because Elegoo does make a really cool-looking, cheap product for a lot of people. And it's sad to see that there's so many people that get these printers and they just have a ton of problems, either right off the bat or a week down the road or a month down the road. And it's very simple, little things that can be checked during the whole manufacturing process. But it is what it is. Every manufacturer has that. It just seems to be more on the FDM side than it is the resin printing side. I've seen more issues with this printer than I have any other printer that I've worked with. And this printer I've replaced more parts on and done more work to than all of my printers that I've had in the past 2.5 years of resin printing. So that's over 25 printers. I've done more work to this printer than all of those combined. Well, up until about a week ago. I had to replace the screen on this printer here and this printer right behind me. So technically they're right on par, but in terms of stuff that I've replaced. But yeah, I've replaced more stuff on this printer than I'd like to ever do on another printer. So just be mindful if you guys are looking into resin printing that while cost is a big factor, I understand that, you really have to look at it and just decide, do I want to spend that little bit extra money and get that different printer that might have a little less problems and, have that? Or do I want to spend less money, roll the dice, and possibly have some problems or maybe no problems at all? I don't know. That kind of seems what it is with the Elegoo Saturn, is a roll of the dice. I, unfortunately, always seem to get the bad ones. Same thing with my Elegoo Mars when I had it. I had one of the newer versions that they changed some things with the Z-axis, and it was just a nightmare for me. And it left a bad taste in my mouth with Elegoo products, and I never went back until I decided, hey, let's go out and buy an actual Saturn, because, again, I didn't have any reps or anything to get me a review unit to actually review, so I'll just go out and buy it. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I know this is more or less like a rant and rave than it is a review. But I mean, like I said, I always try and have the good with the bad, and I want to let you guys know at least my experience with this printer has been a disaster. Now, again, once I fixed all the disasters so far, it's printed very well. I haven't really had any issues with it. I haven't had failed prints with it, nothing like that. So as long as you tune your resin settings, you should be perfectly fine printing on this printer, no problem. But again, if you just do a little bit of research on the Facebook groups and really anywhere on the internet, you'll see that this does have a lot of little minor problems. And then the other big thing that I want to point out before I let you guys go here is with the whole QC thing, going back to that, one of the major things that kind of threw up a red flag and why I waited so long to get one of these is Elegoo wasn't sure about what they wanted from this printer. They seem to have changed the build plate quite a few times. I think 4 times, maybe 3, I know for sure. But I want to say it was 4 different times that they changed the size of the build plate here. Now, that may not be the end of the world to a lot of people, but to some, when you're, wanting to get like a flex plate or you're trying to dial in your space on Shitu box, that's really hard to do because some of these units do have smaller build plates and some of them have the bigger one. I thankfully have the newest version, well, newest as of making this video, and I have the bigger build volume, which is I believe it's 192 by 200 or something like that. So that's a fairly big build plate, and so that I'm okay with. But if they keep changing it back and forth and changing little things here and there, it's not going to be very good for a lot of people. So thankfully, like I said, I got the newer unit. And in terms of like all the stuff that happened before had been fixed, but there was a whole slew of new problems. So again, you're buying a budget printer, so just be wary of when you're buying a printer, that you're making sure you do the research, because don't just listen to all these YouTubers and everything, including myself, and just kind of, get that collectively and base it off of that, as well as, other people's actual user experiences that have been using these printers for a long time. So that's one thing to always take away from, these review videos. So I'm just going to pretty much leave it at that. I will leave a affiliate link down below. Like I said, I don't really have any prints that I can show off here because I've been specifically using it for my other stuff that I can't really show off. But I will say that the prints were very good once we got all the issues corrected on here. And even when we did have issues, besides the LED and the LCD screen issue, once when it was printing, even before that, it was printing perfectly fine. I didn't have any really issues with that unless, there was a resin setting that I didn't calibrate, and yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. So it does print very, very well. It just has a lot of little issues here and there. And yeah, if Elegoo, you're watching, you guys need to step up your QC game just a little bit more, because ever since the Saturn rolled out, your QC has just been the worst that I've ever seen out of any printer company. And that's a lot coming from me saying, my woes with Creality and their Ender 3 models and their terrible QC. So you're right on par there with that. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, I'll leave an affiliate link down below if you want to purchase and, get back to me and the channel and whatnot. That's great. If not, whatever. I hope you guys like the review. If you guys got any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and leave them down below. I will try and answer them as fast as I can. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Till next time, happy printing.